Hello everyone, this is Turin here, and welcome to another entry in our Community Cast series. In this game, we're going to have a matchup between the Beastmen, who are going to be piloted by Chewie, and they're going to be facing off against the Empire, who's going to be piloted by You Stop Please. Definitely a good one. Bunch of Free Company Militia, we got some Demogryph Knights, I also saw some Baconators in the mix, so definitely going to be a party for all. So, in the front line for the Beastmen player, he does have mostly Gore Herds, and Gore Herds are an excellent pick against Empire, guys. If you're a Beastmen player, just get a front line of these guys, and they'll usually do pretty well. The one thing they would, potentially struggle against would be Greatswords, and that is a very, very uncommon pick against the Beastmen. So these guys have 36 weapon strength and 37 melee attack. On top of that, their leadership is not terrible for Beastmen units. So with that high weapon strength and melee attack, they'll trade very efficiently with halberds, with spears, and they'll do, just absolutely work against like backline infantry, like, Free Company and handgunners and anything like that. So a very good pick. And also, guys, they do have 42 move speed. So if you're engaging in the front line, you can run up and around and get some really good pressure. So I really like this pick here from Chewie. On top of that, he does have some best scores in the back. I like this as well, bringing a single group just as kind of a security deposit, basically, just to, if they do, bring a wild group of great swords, or, they get some Demogryph Knights in your back line, it's always nice to have a little bit of infantry AP. On top of that, he does have Morkur the Shadowgave with all of his various buffs with the what is it called? The Staff of Ruinous Corruption, Spirit Essence of Chaos. He does have one group of Ungor Spears to help deal with Cav. He has a Giant and a Lore of Death. So Lore of Death, obviously, if you're playing in a competitive sense as the Beastmen, is the best choice. There's no question. And especially against the Empire, it's pretty crucial because it's very hard to deal with like Empire flying goons. So if they come in, it's a great way to punish them. Just throw a Spirit Leech their way. On top of that, he does have a Baconators and a Giant, so that would probably be the two things I would critique against Empire, because this Empire player has mostly Free Company Militia, which won't be as devastating against the Giant, because the range isn't, you can chase them down a little easier. But if you had like handgunners or silver bullets or anything like that, although, yeah, Free Company will be good against the Giant. So it's a very risky pick. Now, if you can keep it from getting focused down by the missile fire from the Empire, it'll do well, as it would in any matchup, but still, it's a risky pick against Empire, in my opinion. He does have the Baconators over here, a bit of an interesting pick as well. Still, I probably wouldn't bring them against Empire. Granted, they will do okay against, like, if they can get a decent charge into, like, these Flagellants or, Sigmar Sons over here, or even get into the Free Company Militia, but they're definitely better against armored factions like Chaos and Dwarves, but still, if he makes them work, he makes them work. On the far side, he does have some Chaos Warhounds. On top, he does have two groups of Centaurs with great weapons, mixed in with some Chaos Warhounds with poison. I really like this pick. This is like the dream trio here for the Beastmen Cav. They can trade so effectively with Demogryph Knights and Reichsguard and everything. Their burst damage is pretty insane, and I don't know what the causation is for that, but they just do really well against Demogryph Knights for their cost. Single group of Harpies on the far side, I like that quite a bit. So guys, let's take a look at the Empire Army. Frontline and Free Company, like these guys, they trade somewhat efficiently with the frontline troops, the Gores. Granted, the Gores will obviously win, but their missile pressure is going to be very good against, a lot of the Beastmen troops. So, especially since these are the Gores without shields. In the back, he just has a bunch of spears and halberds, pretty standard, Empire stuff, and then, of course, you do have the Sigmar Sons and the Tattersouls. One critique would be maybe to move the Tattersouls over here, because this side of the line is going to collapse pretty aggressively. You can see he has spears over here, so there's a huge power imbalance here. That would just be maybe one, like, minor nitpick. And on top of that, he does have a Jade Wizard. He has the Royal Altdorf Griffites, Demogryph Knights, and the Toad Bringer himself, bringing war to the Beastmen. So right now, the Beastmen player is going to be advancing down the pipe. Again, these troops are very fast. They're deceivingly fast with 42 move speed. The Free Company Militia are kind of set up here. They're going to definitely get some good pot shots on these guys. They're about to be in range, if I'm not mistaken. And Free Company Militia, 17 missile damage. It's not, the heaviest hitting in the world, but they do have great utility. And for their cost, they're pretty solid against Beastmen. So in the front line, you're about to see truly a firing line here. And these are the unshielded Gores, so they're going to take quite a bit of damage from these guys. And I think they should be getting in range here in just a moment. It looks like these guys are setting up their guns to shoot. And I really like the way Free Company look. They're definitely one of the cooler looking units in the game. I'm really excited to see like what they do with the Vampire Coast and all of those different units, as the game progresses in Total War Warhammer 2. So these guys are advancing in the front line. You can see a massive firing line coming down, and these guys are not shielded, so they're going to take some pretty substantial losses. You can see some of these guys literally getting decapitated by the bullets, and that's a lot of raw firepower here, guys. You can see their guns are blazing. The Beastmen are going flying a little bit, but let's go ahead and take a look at the true damage. I know when you look at it from an aesthetic point of view, it looks really bad, but the damage isn't too bad. They only lost one model here, took a little bit of damage here, but the Free Company are going to kind of kite back. You can see the Baconators getting into the back line, getting a great charge to some of these guys. So if the Baconators would be efficient anywhere, it's going to be against these guys. But still, Baconators only have 50 armor, so these troops are going to do okay. But you can see it's not like a ton of damage. But in the front line, the Beastmen are going to engage against the Spears and the Halberds. And this is going to be an extremely favorable matchup for the Beastmen. Even though it doesn't look like it initially, you see a lot of those guys flying. In sustained combat with that high weapon strength and that high melee attack, it's going to be very hard for this Empire front line to really flourish here. So across the whole front, everyone's engaging. You can see these Spears are going to engage against Gores, and this is just going to be an extremely one-sided matchup. So even after a second, you can see the shock damage these guys taking is huge. They haven't lost a ton of models yet, but the Beastmen are taking some casualties as well with their 15 armor. But guys, this is where the punch is really going to happen. You see Morker and the casters coming in here. So this front line here is just going to buckle extremely quickly, especially with the Giant coming in here and just laying an absolute smackdown on these guys. So the Giant kind of waddles in there. He's going to get some decent melee attack, but he actually decides to just move right through onto this back line, which is very smart. Free Company Militia and the other guys in the back were able to deal with the Baconators pretty efficiently. It's pretty well played by the Empire player. And also he does have these Free Company Militia right here who are going to set up shop and just start teeing off on this Giant. So this is definitely like the one kind of apprehension I have about bringing monsters units against the Empire is like the Empire has pretty cost-effective firing lines. So right here, they're just shooting in here. The Free Company Militia were able to rout the Baconators, but guys, there are some Chaos Hounds in the back that are coming in. You can also see he does come in with his Boris Todbringer and charges Morker and actually does some pretty decent burst damage there. But Morker is definitely not someone you want to target, especially when he has a Giant next to him, so that's going to be rough. Also, some of these Hounds do get into the back right here. They're going to charge onto these Free Company Militia, and we'll do pretty well. The one difference with like if these were handgunners, this would just be a massacre. But Free Company Militia are, you know, kind of hybrid infantry, so if they turn and fight, they might be able to actually fend off these Hounds. I'd be interested to see how they do, but they're actually shaken from getting rear charge, so not a good situation. Over here, some of these Flagellants are coming to like tie down the Giant, which is pretty smart. The Giant, you definitely want to like tar pit him and make him get mucked up. But Morker actually charges in and intercepts, and he's wisely pulling back the Giant, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I don't think he was broken, so he did pull the Giant back. He does come in with the Demogryph Knights, and it looks like he did get Spirit Leeched right here. So, you know, the Giant's definitely not in friendly territory right now. This is like I wouldn't say a hard counter because the Giant doesn't have armor per se, but still it's a good matchup. But he wisely runs his Giant into these Bestigors. So Bestigors, though they don't have anti-large and they're not necessarily meant against Cav, they're going to trade well because they have heavy armor piercing and really good offensive stats. So this is definitely a detrimental trade for these guys. And the Giant's going to turn around, and now that he's not being surrounded and a lot of these Gores here are taking a lot of the damage, he can just come and start clobbering these guys and doing a very good job. So these Demogryph Knights starting to actually take model losses, which is very bad. Over in the back, I didn't get a chance to show you guys the Cav fight, but the Demogryphs did take some serious damage from the Bestigors and some of these other units who are in here trading pretty efficiently against these guys, and the poison is so incredibly good at dragging these guys down. That's why that synergy of having the two groups and then the poison is just so good against elite type Cavs. You can see these guys are taking a serious beating, so very effective for the Beastmen player. Balance of power, guys, is very even. You can see it's right down the middle, give or take. The Beastmen have about 440 troops to the 598 of the Empire. The Empire also does still have a pretty healthy firing line of these Free Company Militia who are kind of shooting in here, but you can see the Harpies are coming in the back, and the Hounds are chasing these guys down, and also Harpies just slamming in from all sorts of different angles. So this is just a very, very wild fight, guys. Very, very back and forth, but you can see the balance of power starting to shift slightly in the Beastmen's favor, largely due to the fact that he just got a Chaos Spawn with summon with Morker, and as soon as that happens, it usually bounces, and the balance changes a little bit. It goes in the favor of the Beastmen player. I've seen it, change pretty dramatically when the Chaos Spawn have come into play. But as they degenerate, it'll start to go back or, even out a little bit more. So over here on the top, the Toadbringer was able to isolate this Beastman caster. You can see he's chasing him down pretty efficiently. Has him down to about 500 HP, and he's definitely broken. The Royal Altdorf Griffites have been pretty much put out of commission. I mean, they probably wouldn't even be able to deal with these Gores at this point. So the Toadbringer, very wisely, this is one of the biggest threats to him, is the Spirit Leech and all those other mechanics. So being able to take him out here is very, very smart. Over here, the Halberds have engaged with some of these Bestigors, and Halberds will trade efficiently because they have pretty good AP. You can also see the Sigmar Sons are in here kind of supporting these troops. So the Bestigors, with their 22 melee defense, are going to start taking some serious work, guys. And you can see the Giant here is trying to fight these guys off, and the mighty Toadbringer himself does come in here and is going to get a pretty good engagement on these guys. So the Giant, though, once it turns and starts hitting on Boris, it's going to start doing some work, and he is at about half health, and half health for a Giant is about 4,000 HP, so definitely no joke. So a lot of Gore infantry coming in. They're also being jumped by some of these Tattersouls who are being hit in the back by these Gores. And this is an extremely kind of just back and forth trade in regards to these two type of units trading with one another. You can see the Flagellants taking some pretty serious damage, but they have great stats: 43 melee defense and 43 melee attack and 33 melee defense, which is actually pretty surprisingly high on that end. So the Chaos Spawn and the other guys are chasing off a lot of the missile units. There still is a Jade Wizard here, but the balance of power is now back in the favor of the Empire, guys. And like I was saying, when the Chaos Spawn, start to disappear, it becomes very, very back and forth. But guys, it looks like there's going to be another group of Chaos Spawn summoned here, although I think Morker just got knocked over by the Toadbringer, so he's got to be pretty low. The Shadowgave himself is at about 40% HP. Toadbringer's in much better health. He does have an Earthblood on him, and he's doing some pretty good damage, but Shadowgave, yeah, he's getting dangerously low, guys. This is just such a close fight, but he should have finished off that Deathcaster. That Spirit Leech is making a huge difference in kind of helping to rout the Toadbringer. You see a lot of Halberds coming back in, and another group of Chaos Spawn, so it looks like the tide is starting to turn in the Beastmen's favor, even though it was looking very grim there for a while, especially with Morker taking so much damage. Morker still has quite a ways until he gets to his healing cap. The Empire player wisely pulling out here with the Boris. Definitely wants to get up in the air and do some cycle charging. Maybe getting a good charge on this giant would be enough to start to like break him off the battlefield, but it looks like that's going to be, you know, the battle for the most part. It really took a violent turn there when that second Spirit Essence of Chaos came in. And also a lot of those missile units in the back line, the Beastmen player was very effective at chasing them down. Chewie was, with these Harpies and these other units, even using the Harpies to assassinate the Jade Wizard. So I really like the army composition. And hey guys, he made that giant work. You know, he made the giant work, and the Baconators definitely failed a little bit. I haven't had much success with them myself, but some people can make them work. I just can't, I suppose, even though Beastmen is probably one of my better competitive factions. But, you know, he made this giant work for him. The giant was good at fending off Morker and you know, not Morker, excuse me, Boris, and did some pretty good work. So let's go ahead and take a look at the unit breakdown, guys, and see what was going on. So front line, these guys are just MVPs against Empire. Goreherds are so good, because originally they had 31 weapon strength, and now they have 36. So they got a pretty big buff in that respect. The single group of Bestigors kind of served the purpose that I was articulating in the beginning, and that they were able to do really well against the Royal Altdorf Griffites. Giant did okay. Baconators were a bit of a miss. For the Empire player, I would say he needed to be able to defend his back line a little bit better. What he should have done was use the spears on the flanks and then use the Demogryph Knights defensively. So keep them in the back, because what he did initially was engage these guys against the what's it called, the Centaurs. On that note, what then happened was his back line didn't really have much defense, because he used his spears and all of his halberds in the front. He didn't defend his back line, so the Beastmen were able to get back there and just kind of have their way, which then made it very tough for the Free Company to do their job. So regardless, very well played to Chewie. Thank you for sending me the replay, and also very well played to You Stop Please. Hope I get to face you guys on ladder someday, and thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all have an excellent night, and take care.